I'm on a mission. Can a little bubble of air, that little guy, compete with technology? So, only because my last video has done so well on my tire shop setup, where I basically did a 1-year review of my equipment I have here, which is not tire shop cost, but tire shop, pretty close to tire shop grade equipment. So the tire machine is pretty legit. The balancer is not as high-tech as what you might find in the shops today, but it's still a lot more high-tech than the old school bubble balancer, which is what I want to compare it to and see if these two can kind of tango. Can they keep up with each other? Is the results going to be the same, or is it going to be like a clear difference between the two? I'm just going to say it is, but that's not the whole story. So, with me, with my tire shop experience, I've done hundreds, if not thousands of tires, and some legit equipment, and a few test drives. We're gonna see what happens by the end of this. So, on to problem 1. I don't have a bubble balancer. I'm gonna have to go get one. So I made my way out to good old Harbor Freight, and I wanted the Harbor Freight one specifically, which I'm gonna tell you why here in a second. These are what we came in for today, right? So supposedly, these are so well balanced. Even the box are level. So, just like that, right?
Oh yeah.
Now on to problem number 2. I've never actually used one of these things. Tire shops don't use bubble balancers. They use those. And even if they have one of those on the shelf from years ago, when that breaks down, they still don't use one of those. Let's see here. Okay. Right about there. So just like how anyone learns anything these days, I Googled it and watched some YouTubes. Got it. So now that I am YouTube certified, this is Harbor Freight's newest, latest, and greatest bubble wheel balancer. Now, it's important. We gotta get these pieces out. The important part is this right here. Not really, but kind of. This is the newer black base version of the balancer. The older version was the red base, or even silver. Supposedly, the black base is better. It's got a cap on it, but the little point in here is supposed to be better, and the way it sits in there is supposed to be a little better, supposedly, or I just paid a bunch of extra money for nothing. But the old ones, I guess, they wouldn't really rock freely, and the needle was too soft or something. It would smush with the weight of like a heavy tire on there, and then next time you go to use it, it wouldn't work very well. So I got to put this together, and then we got to calibrate it, which is the most important part of all of this comparison stuff. Everything has to be perfect to start with. Well, I don't know what the old ones were like, but this sucker's been spinning for at least a couple minutes now, and wobbling. I actually put just the slightest little dab of grease on the end of the needle just to help with like the friction. I got it all put together, and to get this calibrated and set up to where it's actually going to work for you, you have to kind of make sure you put it in the same place or recalibrate it every time you move it. I think this is about where I'm going to use it. The whole shed's actually pretty level in here, but you have to adjust this part. It's on its own little kind of rocking pin, just like how the whole thing is, but it has its own little one there. And once it settles down and actually stops spinning around like crazy, you just kind of turn these little screws and just kind of tweak that around to where that bubble is within the circle And then I noticed there's actually like a little dot in the middle. You can see through the bubble, and there's a little dot. So you basically want this to where every time it stops, it is very, very, very close to going to that same center point. So the next mission is, now I have to get this calibrated so we can have a fresh start on both of these. I know this one's about due for it. I haven't done it since I've had the machine. It's just the calibration that it like rolled out of China with, and it's been pretty good, but it's finally starting to get a little funky. So it's a bit more of a process. I need to get a steel wheel with the tire on it that's not like oversized or undersized, like just an average size steel wheel with a tire on it. So I got to find one of those. Let's see, nope, not gonna work. Nope, still not gonna work. I mean, it's steel, but that's definitely not gonna work. Ah, here we go, the old trailer tires. Steelies, good tires, not oversized, not undersized. I gotta get one of these off here. Okay, so I ran through it a couple times just to make sure I actually followed the instructions and did everything the way that it's supposed to be done. I needed that steel wheel because it came with this weight, which is, you put it on, it spins, it like senses where that weight is. You put it on the other side, it's actually the other way around. You do that, you do that, it calculates all that, and then it says you're golden. So that is why I needed this, just to calibrate it. So at least the old trailer is good for something. Okay, now it's time to get out of the tire shop and on the road. So our test vehicle is going to be the good old V8 swapped S10 that, if you guys have watched the channel, you should be plenty familiar with because it's been pretty much the whole channel lately. So I took this guy off of this wheel right here. I just reached in and peeled it off. This is the only weight this wheel had on it. And look how beat up that thing is. But I peeled that off. I'm hoping we drive down the road and there's like a little shimmy in the steering wheel. It'll be real obvious, and then we have like something kind of real world to compare to. Just your everyday S10. Definitely normal, totally stock S10. Okay, so steering wheel, if anything, it's smoother than it was before. Let's go to figure. So I gotta go back home and pick another tire, hopefully the other front tire, because I want to see the steering wheel shake so we have something to compare to. Well, I took a big chunk of weight off of the passenger front tire, and we're like still just smooth as ever. So yeah, I tried. We're still gonna try to compare as best we can. We just don't have like the visual steering wheel shaking thing to compare one to the other. So yeah, that's really strange. So back to the shop. Okay, let's get this on here. Okay, that should be pretty good. That is a whole lot of tire for that little needle point. So you gotta kind of set it down with a little bit of oomph so it actually hits that cone and centers up a little bit. Because if it's kind of off to one side or the other, then obviously that's gonna throw like everything off. Okay, this is interesting. So I picked it up and I kind of did this little spin motion so this would rotate a little bit, and then just set it back down. It's still centered and everything on here. I put a mark right where it did want weight. Now it wants weight over here to get it perfect. So that is like a whole quarter of a tire off. All right, so I'm starting to see the like room of error, margin of error with this here. So I just tweaked this a little bit. It was really close, and so now it's just basically like slightly closer to base. It was perfect almost either way. Now I put the tire back on here. I made sure it's nice and centered. We did need weight there, then we needed one of these other corners. Now it wants it almost on the other side of the tire, because you see the bubble is there. So now it wants just the slightest amount of weight over there. So let's move this one more time now, since I did adjust it, and see if it points over to this like O of the good wrench again. So now it says it's still moving around a little bit, but it's looking like, oh man, now it wants it over here. Oh wow. So it's almost, depending on how you put it on there, it's going to tell you something slightly different every time. And I tried, that's with 2 different calibrations, and it's still doing the same thing both times. That's really strange. So I was hoping to mark and then put it on there and see if that says like the same. But if I dot this, I'm going to have dots everywhere because it seems like it keeps moving. It's within that circle, so maybe that's just the margin of error. Ignore it if it's within the circle kind of thing. It is weird. If it's moving though, depending how you put it on there, there's that much of a margin of error every single time, no matter what you do. Let's put it on the electronic guy and see what that says. I got this bad boy on here. It's nice and level. We got her cinched in real good. There's a lot of different ways to balance on this, but there's only one way to balance on that feller, and that is static. So that is, you put your weights ideally in the middle if you can, and it balances this way. There's dynamic balance, which you see like some of these other things, they have different spots you'd put weights on. What it doesn't show is the default that's on now, which like a steel rim, where you would clip on one on the outside or inside and one on the outside. This one has weird lips on it. You can technically bang one on the or the inside lip here. There's not really an outside lip to put weights on, and a lot of wheels are like that. But you can't really dynamically balance this one because the spokes come in so far. So if I use stick-on weights on the inside and then bang-on weights on the outside, the ones, you can see where I've tried to do it before, or someone tried doing it. This is like basically the middle of the wheel, and then these are on the inside of the wheel. So all of the weight, you're not actually putting weight on that side of the wheel at all. Maybe that's why, maybe this was just counterbalanced, and that's why me taking all those weights off didn't actually make a difference. So we're gonna just do the stickies in the middle. So that'll be static balance right in the middle, and we're see what the machine calls for. We'll go from there. Okay, let's try that. Okay guys, so this has been kind of an annoying bust so far. I ran this on the electronic balancer. I've moved it on the actual hub and turned it just like we did on the bubble balancer, and it actually had some error in it too. It mainly kept flashing from like 0.50 to 0.75. I did it like 10, maybe like 15 times. made sure that it was on there the right way and everything, because I was surprised that it had that much of a room of that much of a gap. But it definitely has a little bit of give in it too, which, I mean, this is like a bigger off-road tire. That's to be expected a little bit. To make this not a total bust of a video, I got kind of crazy and I just tacked on a big honking weight right there, and sure enough, it picked it up. We're still on static balance, but it wants 2 ounces of weight, which is a pretty serious amount. That's 2 of those guys put together, basically the opposite side of where that weight is. So that's a good sign that it did calibrate right, because it's definitely realizing something's astray. So this wants 2 ounces. That's like within, or I should say outside of that little margin of error that apparently both of these have. So I'm gonna mark where that is on the tire, and when we put it on the bubble balancer, we'll see how well that picks it up. So 2 ounces here. Maybe I'll go ahead and tack that on, and I'll counterbalance this to where it says it's good. Okay, so if we run it, that should balance out. Okay, now we're back at 0 again. So okay, so we got something to actually compare now. So our on purpose out of balance weight is right in this area, and you see I ended up kind of spreading these weights out a little bit to get this bubble really close to the center again. So I really wish we had like an actual messed up tire to do this the right way and do the whole stick on weights and show you the whole process of that. But this is just kind of what I had to deal with. We did find out the static balance between this and that, and the like margin of error seems to be really similar between these for static balance. So that's the big thing. That's all this is ever going to do. Like, you could pile all your weight on just the outside of the rim here, and that bubble is going to tell you that it's perfect, but it might not feel perfect going down the road. And that's because now you have a this kind of wobble instead of just an up and down wobble, where this is why I was going to do the stick on weights that's just in the center of this, but apparently this wheel doesn't need any weight. Or if you're doing the clip-ons like that, you would split the difference. So like you would put, you know, this weight would go right here, and then this other one would go on the back side. So you have the same amount of weight, but it's spread out front and back. So one way or another, try not to just put it all on one side of the wheel. So I'm glad this ended up working out. It seems to be okay and reasonably close so far. I look forward to putting a rim on here and then setting the tire like on top of it and moving it around to where it's like most balanced before I put it all together, which is not something you can do on that. You kind of just put it on there. If it gives you a crazy number, you can try dismounting it and twisting it around and see if maybe you got unlucky and put like the heavy side of the tire with the heavy side of the rim and then put it back. But it's like a guessing game. And if you watched the last video, I played the guessing game and I actually got it wrong. It was right the first way it was together. Alright guys, so this was viewer suggested. Some of you guys reached out in the comments on the last video and said you actually wanted to see something like this. So if you have any thoughts of this, if you've actually have more experience with the bubble thing, put it down in the comments. Let me know what you think. What did I mess up on? I think that's all I got for now. So thanks for hanging out, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Got it. This is gonna be so stupid.